The occupied sun.
Welcome back to The Occupied Sun for the Occupy News Network. I'm Narkeh. The world's largest anti-establishment protest by the world's most influential group is upon us once again. MillionMaskMarch.com reports that anonymous protests are scheduled at city halls in 645 cities worldwide this November 5th from 9 a.m, with marches encouraged from 5 p.m. at rush hour. Last year's Million Mask March brought London to a complete standstill, with tens of thousands of anonymous masking up in the capital. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing this November 5th, be safe, be careful, and look after each other. Among the actions on November the 5th in London will be the Fuel Poverty Action Group, who will be staging a 24-hour protest against fuel poverty, the greed of the Big Six energy companies, and in support of the Energy Bill of Rights. The group plan to be at Parliament Square from 10 a.m. November 5th to 10 a.m. November 6th, wearing nothing but Bermuda shorts. 2.3 million people currently live in fuel poverty in the UK, with an elderly person dying every 7 seconds from fuel poverty. The Bermuda shorts dress code is optional. Everybody is welcome to join the protest. Global conflicts continue to escalate the worst refugee crisis since World War II as the UN release a report warning that we are likely to see upward of 50 million climate refugees within the next decade. More than 50 people have died attempting to reach Greece in the last 5 days. The majority are described as Syrian refugees, most of them women and children. Bulgaria's Interior Ministry announced on Saturday that 120 people, 38 men, 33 women and 58 children, most of them believed to be from Syria, had been discovered hidden behind bottles of water in a refrigerated truck on the country's border with Turkey. In August, 71 people were found dead in a refrigerated lorry designed to carry frozen food after traffickers abandoned the vehicle in Austria. The UN Refugee Agency said Monday that a record 218,394 people crossed the Mediterranean to reach European shores in October, about as many as the total from all of the previous year. So far this year, more than 2,500 people have died trying to cross the Mediterranean. 1 in 3 outgoing European Union commissioners who left office in 2014 have gone through the revolving door into roles in corporations or other organisations with links to big business, revealing an unhealthily close relationship between the EU's executive body and private interests, according to a new report by Lobby Control and Corporate Europe Observatory. The report examines various revolving door cases which reveal the close relationship between the EU Commission and corporate interests, concluding that stricter rules are required to prevent these blatant conflicts of interest. The report includes a spreadsheet detailing all former EU Commissioners' known revolving door activities. Former Commission President José Manuel Barroso is the busiest former Commissioner with 22 new roles. What does it mean to have a free media when the nation's TV channels, news outlets, radio stations, search engines and social media platforms are owned by a handful of giant corporations? What does it mean to have independent media when many of our most influential media organisations are controlled by individuals and boards that are so closely connected with vested interests? Media Reform Coalition have published a new short report entitled "Who Owns the UK Media?" They found that just 3 companies dominate 71% of the national newspaper market. When online readers are included, just 5 companies dominate some 80% of market share. Over 50% of national UK papers sold are controlled by just 2 billionaires, Jonathan Harmsworth, the 4th Viscount Rothermere, and Rupert Murdoch. In an interview with CNN, disgraced former Prime Minister and war criminal Tony Blair has issued a half-arsed pseudo-apology for the dodgy dossier which he used to justify the illegal invasion of Iraq in 2003.
You know, whenever I'm asked this, I can say that I apologise for the fact that the intelligence we received was wrong, because even though he had used chemical weapons extensively against his own people, against others, the program in the form that we thought it was did not exist in the way that we thought. So I can apologise for that. I can also apologise, by the way, for some of the mistakes in planning, and certainly our mistake in our understanding of what would happen once you removed the regime.
The statement comes ahead of the much anticipated Chilcot report, which Blairites everywhere had been hoping everybody would just forget about. The scale of the suffering in Iraq and around the world, which Tony Blair has profited from, is incalculable. The man is a textbook Bond villain and he knows it, but still the state apparatus refuse to acknowledge him as such. Former Manchester United footballers Gary Neville and Ryan Giggs recently made a remarkable humanitarian gesture. Homeless activists, the Manchester Angels, had occupied the old Stock Exchange building, which the ex-footballers own and intend to develop into a boutique hotel. Neville and Giggs gave the group their blessing to remain in the building throughout the winter months. Since the initial euphoria, a well-known right-wing tabloid published an ad hominem hit piece on a lead organiser, while anarchist blog freedomnews.org.uk condemned the Stock Exchange as charitable disempowerment, voicing criticism about the leadership's collaboration with the owners and private security firms. The good news is that Manchester City Council have now announced they are going to follow the footballers' lead and start opening up the city's empty buildings for homeless people to use as evening and overnight accommodation this winter. The council is working with companies, charities and the voluntary sector to see if their empty buildings could also be used and how they could be managed to ensure safety. The UK is apparently still suffering from a little documented scourge of legal highs, particularly spice and particularly amongst the growing numbers of rough sleepers. Legal highs come in various strengths, brands and toxicities and are destroying vulnerable people's lives all over the country. UK Gov plc are planning to bring in new legislation to make it an offence to produce, supply, import or export legal highs. The Psychoactive Substances Bill is currently being debated in Parliament and is likely to come into force in spring 2016, though it has been described as unenforceable by some. Lincoln City Council became the first place in the UK to introduce a ban on people taking legal highs in public places in April this year. Exeter City Council is now moving to follow their lead. The total death count from legal highs is currently unknown due to coroner's tests usually not picking up traces of legal highs, but the shocking effects of these substances across the country are indisputable. Data from the mental health charity Mind reveals the scale of sanctions imposed on people with mental health problems being supported by out-of-work disability benefits. Figures obtained under the Freedom of Information Act show that there were up to 3 times more benefit sanctions issued by the Department for Work and Pensions to people with mental health problems last year than there were people supported into work. These revelations follow the DWP's refusal last week to commission an independent review of the use of conditionality and sanctions in the benefits system, despite being recommended by the Work and Pensions Select Committee, a cross-party committee of MPs. There is currently very little evidence to support the idea that threatening to cut someone's benefits helps them to find work. UK Gov plc proposals for police and crime commissioners to take over management of the fire and rescue service would put public safety at risk, according to the Fire Brigades Union. The proposals regarding police and crime commissioners are part of a wider consultation announced in September and covers work already taken on by firefighters, such as collaboration with overstretched ambulance workers. An extract from the Fire Brigade Union's submission to the consultation reads, "It is a huge mistake to allow police and crime commissioners to take over the management of fire and rescue services. Such a step would ruin the service firefighters provide to the public, damage the functioning and reputation of the fire and rescue service, diminish local democracy, worsen firefighters' working conditions, and is bad news for the police service itself. The Fire Brigade Union urges the government to stop and think again before it damages an irreplaceable public service." And housing rights activist Daniel Gardene, who has been threatened with deportation by the Home Office, has had his hearing announced. He will meet with his lawyers and the state bureaucrats on November 16th. Daniel has been involved in many housing rights occupations and live streams regularly on the Occupy News network, most recently from Sweetstopia, the Sweets Way estate occupation. A Fedbook event page has been created, Stand Up for Daniel, with an open invitation for supporters to come to the hearing 11 a.m. November 16th at Becket House, SE1 3QU. That's just some of the headlines which have been underreported, censored or distorted by the 1% media. Thanks for watching, we'll be back soon.